All right. Welcome to the most special edition of Friends from Work in a long time. If you can hear some of the noise in the background, we out here live at Austin Books and Comics, staring at a line of hundreds, if not 1,000 people right in front of me.
Yeah, I think right now they're expecting 4,000 is the expectation for the day.
4,000 people in one day. We got Candace out here working the lines, giving our posters away.
Wearing her Homage gear.
Could not ask for a better supporter.
That's true.
And she's not even getting paid. We got Emily bringing us stuff from Batch, unpaid ad for Batch. Shout out to the Coloshes and Cinnamon Roll I ate, which was unbelievable.
Yeah. If you're in Austin, then you know.
Thank you. So today, on today's episode, we're going to be reflecting on Thunderbolts because we've seen it a second time. Well, Robbie's seen it a second time. I have not yet. Story there. But if you hear us jump out to interact with somebody, it's because we're doing this live. So much fun. And we're giving away these artwork prints from Jacoby of our Daredevil artwork, which is so sick.
Yeah, which you can find on our Instagram, maybe on our website. We should put it on our website if it's not there yet.
And I think we only have 4 left.
Wow.
4 left because Candace was working the lines.
I love it.
But a really special day for Austin Books and Comics, but it's also a really special day for just comic book readers in general because across the country it's Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
And Austin Books and Comics is one of the best at blowing this thing out. I'm staring at a snow cone line. They got some artists and other writers here, a giant inflatable Spider-Man.
You need the giant inflatable Spider-Man.
And you need the Pikachu.
Yep.
So just an absolute treat to be here today. So last night, well, 2 things I'll say. One, the first time we went to Thunderbolts, I didn't include that. I got some Milk Duds that were totally rotten.
Yeah, thank you for setting the record straight on the Milk Duds.
So that's part of the reason that we're going to be eating some food from Batch right now. It's kind of redeeming my taste buds for the sweetness that I missed with my rotten Milk Duds at the theater. That was my first theater experience, but Robbie got to go last night. I was going to fly to Austin and go with you last night. Instead,
What is that? Look
go.
at that.
This is what I was talking about. Good to see you.
Nice.
Incredible.
Welcome, man. Loving the shirt.
We got an OG
yeah.
Friends from Work shirt here right now. Okay, sorry, we were back. I warned that might happen, but we're actually going to pause it because one of our favorite listeners, our Discord user, Alex, the Scarlet Witch, showed up and hung out and said hi. I love it. This is my absolute dream.
He is, in fact, a man.
Yeah. He's not Elizabeth Olsen, turns out. But, okay, I was telling you my theater story, which is that I was going to go last night. My flight got canceled, so I didn't get to see it a second time. You, however, did get to see it a second time.
I did.
Do you want to kick us off with any thoughts you had that were different from the first viewing?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it held up in the ways that I wanted it to.
Did it?
You know, the second viewing is always... I was telling Candace, like, it's always fun because once every time you watch something like that, you catch things, and that's why I always feel like if it's a good movie, even if it's a movie you don't like the first time, if you're someone that can stomach multiple watches of something, I think that it's always worth it, just because it's sort of like listening to an album the first time, where I feel like you can really only catch the like music, like the headlines, and then I feel like you come back through and you can start like zooming in on certain lyrics and start to kind of like latch onto things. And I feel like with movies, it's that, but like with the plot, like you can, especially when you don't know what's coming, all the attention is on the, like, what's going to happen next, where it's just going to leave things. So the second viewing is nice because you can then go back and like pay attention to like micro expressions from actors and see like what some of the transitions are leading to things that you know are coming. So like for me last night, some of the big takeaways were just kind of in the minute things that actors were doing that I don't think I was really able to zoom in on initially. Like Florence Pugh is one of these actors that is just like so...
This is incredible. There's a drone flying around.
I love that, like, as soon as we, like, if we stopped recording right now, it would be like, just, like, dead silent. But as soon as
we start,
like I'm just waiting for like a fully painted clown to like walk in front of the table and just start honking at me.
No doubt. To all of our listeners out there, this might be the worst idea we've ever done, but it's also the best. So continue. That, by the way, that is so true. Once your guard is down, it's not even guard. It's just like the first time you watch it, you're not watching the same things. You know, you're looking for something different, and then all of a sudden, once the plot concerns are answered, you can notice like looks or like this person's doing a better job or whatever.
Well, even from like a framing, like part of the like No Way Home, you know, is one of the famous examples of a movie that like you and I went and saw together, and it just took me a second to process. Endgame was the same way, because you don't know like what context to put everything in yet. So you're kind of like, whoa, what is that? And if it's like a left turn. So like for me, it felt like initially with No Way Home kind of jarring.
Yeah.
When the Spider-Man showed up.
I remember that night so distinctly.
But now you go back and you watch it and you see the way that it's like more unified and setting things up. And like for Thunderbolts, that there was no part that felt jarring to me. And in that way, it's kind of different from some of the big like event movies. But I did think like, okay, like paying special attention to that first scene with Yelena, knowing how things were going to end with like her and Bob and the conversation at the end. And
that was going to be the actual building.
Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, exactly. Like you start to pit, like you know, obviously you see in that first scene, like the shadows, like there are little things like that throughout that were fun to watch from a plot perspective, but also like and thematic perspective. But the acting, like I was starting to say, Florence Pugh is just, I think, always excellent. And that's why I think it's like, I love that she, even before this movie came out, had been announced as part of the Doomsday cast. I was telling Candace last night, it's funny to me. I get it. Like in the real world, Florence Pugh is like one of the biggest movie stars around right now. Certainly, like in terms of someone rising up.
Right.
So I get it. Like I'm not an idiot, but I do think it's really funny, like that the character introduced as Natasha's, like the Black Widow's kid sister in a prequel type movie, is now like moving to be kind of like a centerpiece of the MCU.
Sure.
Which again, I get it because of the real world dynamics, but it is kind of like, it's impressive that they're making that transition in a way that feels so organic.
And it's funny where that stuff comes from. You're right. Because sometimes I feel like it's set up, whereas you go like Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
That's coming because it's a huge comic book character.
Right.
So
right.
people but like Yelena, it's more, the off-screen stuff where it's like, well, this is Florence Pugh now.
Yeah.
She's a huge deal. She's killing it. Fans seem to be into what she's doing. Let's make her a bigger deal. And honestly, that's actually a couple of the tidbits I could follow up on. One, we didn't really talk about this in our initial reactions episode, which is just that even that, we've now heard that there might even have been some kind of tweaking to Doomsday once they kind of saw how Thunderbolts was going to perform. Now, this is before. I don't think they're tweaking it the day of the release of Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
But months ago when they got word that, this Thunderbolts film might actually be really amazing. And as of now, it's got like 89 or 90% critic, 95% audience, A- cinema score. So it's doing well. And now I think the word of mouth is going to grow this thing box office wise.
Yeah.
But just the fact that maybe even Marvel's willing to tweak Doomsday because now this movie is so successful.
Yeah.
That's something we didn't talk about. But you're right. Like, now Yelena is like one of the fixtures of this whole thing. And it's more because of Florence Pugh's charisma and off-screen standoutness.
It is like, it makes sense to me why she has said that she loves this character so much. Because it's like, again, I've seen her in so many different roles. Like I've seen her in period pieces, I've seen her in like the horror context, and obviously in Oppenheimer, and she's just, like there are always these kind of like it actors that show up, both like actors and actresses, and sometimes that corresponds with them being like really talented, but sometimes it just kind of corresponds with them like having they're in a movie that has a moment or something, and like Florence Pugh and Timothée Chalamet are the two people that I just think I know that they are like at the center of pop culture, but really from like the moment that they first popped up on the scene, I think it was immediately clear how insanely talented they are. And it makes me so happy that we have this like rising generation of actors that can like be real chameleons. Like Chalamet is the same way. Like you can see him in all these. I thought he was like his Bob Dylan was great. I don't know if you saw Complete Unknown.
I haven't seen it yet. That might be my plane movie on the way home today.
It's like it's great. Obviously, Dune is very different. Call Me by Your Name is very different. But it's like this. Like Florence is the same way, but what I love is like this character, she's putting such a unique stamp on, like that the way that she like delivers the accent and her just like the general cadence of the lines is just inherently like endearing, but also kind of funny. Like it makes lines that are like written to be funny, funnier. And so like I am curious, like that is a character to your point that is not a fixture of the Marvel Comics universe. Like she is a character in the Marvel Comics universe. She shows up in like Kelly Thompson's Black Widow run. She's like been in like more of a villain role actually in the Bendis New Avengers run. But yeah, to your point, it's not Doctor Doom. It's not Spider-Man. It's not even Thanos. Like it's not a character that makes any sense to be like a headliner. And it is more evidence to me that Sarah Halley Flynn is Marvel's secret weapon on the casting front.
Oh, what a good call out. We've never shouted her out here.
It's like, I mean, because she's been doing this since the beginning.
Yeah. How about the fact that Lewis Pullman wasn't the original casting?
Yeah.
And then because of some scheduling conflicts, he shows up and then turns in one of the best, I wouldn't even call it villain performances, but like anti-hero performances. To the degree that the Void was a villain and it was short-lived. That was like a top 5, 10 Marvel villain. And he was cast last minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought he is, I mean, you know, like Stephen Yeun would have done an incredible job. Like,
right, no comment on him there.
Yeah, I've seen everything he's ever been in. I think he's been incredible. I mean, I've told you, we just had, when Alex dropped by, we were talking Invincible. Like, Invincible is my favorite, like, it's one of my favorite shows right now, period.
Full stop.
Like, it's,
no cap.
It's so good. It's like, I don't think that there's any other, like, I don't know. Like, even shows like Andor and Severance that I know are, like, almost immaculate.
Careful.
No. There's just something so fun. Every time I get a new Invincible episode, I am like, it's like the fun thing about that show is you truly never know what's going to happen. Like, it's a comic book world where you don't know, like, people die, like, frequently, legitimately, like main characters. And so, like, in these, like, superhero battles, it's like in an MCU film, but, you know, like midway through Winter Soldier, like, Steve Rogers is not going to die in the battle.
Right. Yeah, good point.
But, like, or, you know, neither
it's
will,
only
like,
once
Black
we
Widow.
start sensing that they're almost done with their off-screen contract.
When you're like,
close.
is this? But yeah, so it's like but I also, to that point, and the reason I bring up Invincible, I do think it was smart. I know it was just a scheduling thing, but I think it's smart to not do another, like in Invincible, the whole premise is like he's kind of like a Superman type, where he's nearly indestructible, which is why that's his name. And so I feel like it
would have been a lot of the same kind of beats, probably.
Yeah, like I think it's a lot. It's especially because, like, I think sometimes when you give actors those roles, it's like Sebastian Stan is a perfect example of, you cast him as Bucky in probably like 2009, I think, is when he got brought in. And he, like...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The casting director needs props for not just the people that she finds, but when she finds them.
Well,
like, Lewis Pullman killed it, and I know he's a name. Yeah, but would you say he's like an A-lister right now?
No. He's...
But watch, 5 years, he might be.
Well, dude, no, I mean, that's the same thing. Like, you look at Chris Pratt, like, circa Guardians. Like, it's like you...
One Free Snoke. Look at that.
Nice. Wow.
he's like the most extreme example, but there are other examples too.
Well,
Now, obviously, RDJ being the first, which was like he was a huge name, but given
Yeah. Oh,
given
he was.
the context,
Yeah.
and I'm not
he was
saying
the
she
first,
casted him because Jon Favreau had a lot to do with that and all that.
but a lot of those early, like when you read about it, like she was involved from the get go with like the Chris's. Like,
was Scarlett as big then as she is now? No.
she certainly wasn't like I'm holding down a blockbuster. Like she's now the face of Jurassic World.
And here's the other thing that's crazy about that is like almost every other series that has that happen, they get pigeonholed. Like there's like a thing called the Seinfeld curse, literally.
Right.
Which is like you became so famous as one thing, it's really hard for you to then break out of that and do something else. And for some reason, not only has she casted people who have grown into mega stars, billionaires sometimes.
Yeah.
Not only that, but also they almost all have not been pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Almost all of them have then gone on to, I think about like Scarlett doing Jurassic Park, but also doing like Marriage Story, which is very not Black Widow. I think about RDJ winning for Oppenheimer, and I think about they all have
even
now
like
done
Chris
other
Evans
things.
in Knives Out was like a totally different.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hemsworth has done a ton of action movies. Like it's not just that they're in their thing. Pratt has done a ton of things. It's not
Mark Ruffalo.
yeah, correct. Mark Ruffalo's been in like indies and
Yeah. I mean, I think that like what I didn't realize is that like,
so they nailed it is my point, and they're not stuck.
well, yeah, and when she is, I think what makes her so impressive is that she'll have people come in and like I think Tom Hiddleston read for Thor, and like the ability to see that and know that should be Loki, and knowing how like recognizably like
Right.
if there's any one actor that embodies a character, that like I think the only competition would be like RDJ with Tony Stark. Like next has to be like Tom Hiddleston's Loki. Like it's just like, and
Yeah,
so she's
not just in terms of quality, but like most similar to how you envision that character being.
like, and that's I think what's so crazy is you think like, oh, that makes so much sense, but there's someone that sees him like audition for a different character and knows to pivot. But the same thing, like I think Sebastian Stan, I think auditioned for Steve Rogers.
I think so too. I think I've heard that.
Like, but there are other things that are interesting. Like I think Chadwick auditioned for Star-Lord, which I think is what was the inspiration for the What If episode.
But then also there are times where it's the exact thing. Like Tom Holland auditioned for Spider-Man and she knew it right away.
Yeah. And
You know what I
that's
mean?
like,
So it's
no, totally. Well, and like to your point earlier, the foresight of like getting in on the ground floor with like Florence Pugh, Zendaya. Then you look at like
Tom Holland,
like Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth.
Like she was in things at that point, but that was like a huge jump forward.
Oh,
And
for sure.
It's like all of these.
And
Jeremy Renner.
even also another thing, the foresight to acknowledge that, like Elizabeth Olsen doesn't turn in her best performance of her career ever in Age of Ultron.
Right.
But she still saw it enough that like this may one day lead to a WandaVision.
Yep. And that's the other thing that I think is fascinating. Like Sebastian Stan, when he was first
or him, he's a perfect
cast,
example.
like if you buy and I would recommend people track this down. It's like $10 on Amazon. It's like the Captain America Winter Soldier like premiere softcover thing that they're doing. Sebastian Stan writes like the foreword to.
Oh, look at this, the Scarlet Witch
Oh, nice! Look,
and Spider-Man.
speak of the devil.
Yeah, sorry. Continue, Sebastian Stan.
But he talks about how like he got the call that he was being cast as Bucky, and he loved the Winter Soldier comic, and that kind of made him invested in Bucky. But he tells the story about how like when he was on the first Avengers set, he had read the comics, and he was really hoping that because of like this scene like where he dies, that it wasn't actually going to be his death. And then he saw that at one point he was supposed to be wearing like a green screen sleeve during that scene where he falls off the train, and he was like, okay, that's perfect. They're going to like put the Winter Soldier arm on. And then he said, like, as they're filming, they were like, actually, we don't think, like, we need the green sleeve, like, the sleeve.
He's like, no.
And he was like, no. And then, like, obviously, they wind up, like, bringing him back. But there's this, like, they bring people in that, like, I think you hope, like, when you're Elizabeth Olsen, that, like, it works well enough that one day you get to do, like, you know, the House of M story that she talked about in those interviews that went around. I think that's the really impressive thing is, like, Chris Hemsworth is another example where, like, you cast him because, oh, he's, like, he looks like Thor, obviously. Like, he's, like, a, you know, specimen. Right. But then, like, also...
David Harbour with Red Guardian.
Well, I'm just, like, and the reason I say Hemsworth is because, like, you could have... There's a world where you cast him and all he can do is what Thor does in the first 2 Thor movies. But the fact that they cast someone that can also work that well with Taika Waititi and be that funny, like there are levels to it. And so Thunderbolts, I think, is so fun because you see all of these actors that, like, every time I've watched Black Widow in recent years, I have looked at, like, David Harbour and thought, man, this is so good. Or, like, Florence Pugh and thought, like, man, this is so good. And I really hope that we get, like, follow-ups that, like, give us more with these characters, because otherwise it would almost feel like wasted casting.
Okay, sorry. What I was going to say is, yes, I agree with all of that casting stuff. So good. Let's get into more of the details about Thunderbolts after a quick word from these sponsors. And as always, don't forget our comics and merchandise sponsors, Homage.com and OrganicPricebooks.com. At Organic Price Books, you can use the promo code FriendsFromWork, all one word, to save even more money on incredible books. And then our new partner, Homage, has some incredible merchandise, not just comic-themed merchandise, but also Disney, Star Wars, and sports stuff, too. So anything you want to get, it's actually legitimately great-feeling clothing. And if you go there using our link in the show notes, specifically that link, it tells them that we sent you, and it helps us, and it helps you. So, Robbie, we were talking a lot about the casting. Obviously, a lot of craziness going on right now. There are a few little things that I've been thinking about that we didn't bring up in the first episode.
Yeah.
One, the new title card. Small detail, different and awesome.
The opening,
like Marvel Studios thing.
Do you think that's
apparently it's using some new comics or something as part of the scroll?
It's like Century Comics.
Okay, and then switching to the darkness and the void as it goes through.
My question is, do you think that they're going to, like, will it just revert to the standard, like, for Fantastic Four, or do you think, I know they'll do something like vintage for Fantastic Four.
Something vintage,
especially because it's Giacchino.
They've been doing fun stuff now for years. If you think back, in fact, that'd be a fun discussion.
Like Loki, all goes green.
All goes green. I think Miss Marvel, if I remember right, like had kind of the
animated. WandaVision went black and white, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the aspect ratio changed.
Yeah, I bet Fantastic Four will be fun too, because it's also like, I love having Giacchino on movies, like on Marvel movies, since he's composed that opening, because it's like, I feel like he has extra, like Werewolf by Night is one of the most fun change-ups, because you've got the, like, scream in the background.
Like those, like, string things too, yeah.
I think so, yeah, I bet that. But yeah, I liked this one a lot.
That'd be a fun conversation to have sometime. Secondly, you also brought up that on your second viewing, this is an example of something sticking out differently than the first time, that JLD was just better than you remember. Not that we obviously, we didn't have any negatives on the film. Our whole initial reactions is 90 minutes of all positivity. But we didn't really highlight her performance. And you said you watched it a second time, once your guard was down about the plot, that actually stuck out to you even more.
Well, especially because, like, there are scenes where she is intentionally, like, overacting, like that. It didn't, like, I didn't flag it when I was watching it as like, oh no, she's not acting well. But it was like, I feel like I didn't quite know that, like, at the very end, after they've won and saved Century and everything, there's like that scene where they see her and she's like luring them into the press conference. but like she's intentionally like, oh my gosh, I need backup. There's no backup. I need some right now. And I remember in the moment in the theater being like, that's a little like,
I see.
that's a kind of a turn for that character. And then,
but then knowing she was gonna go back through the,
she's like intentionally like trying to like yell it and lure them in, because that was part of me, is I'm like, why is she like out in the open just screaming this? So there are all these little moments, like even her when she's testifying, you can tell she's like, the jokes that she's making are like forced, because she's kind of trying to put on this like politician, like, haha, like you wouldn't call him Secretary of Fence. And then it's like Mel like winks at her, but it's not like, that's not supposed to actually be a funny line. That's supposed to be like her doing like a
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a meta level of humor. You got to kind of know.
Yeah.
Inside the movie, they know they're trying to be like dumb and funny inside the story.
The other one that I don't think we brought, maybe we did, I really noticed David Harbour this time. Like I noticed it especially because I realized, like, you know, it takes a bit for him to come into the movie and joining the team.
Yep.
And I noticed how different the dynamic is for the first half.
Yeah.
Before he syncs up.
Yes.
And then it becomes this like the whole tone shifts positively, I think. Like, not that it's dour before, but it's like he brings this kind of joy to it. But also,
the scene of him even honking the limo and showing up is like one of the highlights of the movie for me. Just him pulling up, and then
he's like, "Don't go to the vault. She's going to burn you alive." Yeah. I think like,
and then he goes, "Just ignore him." And then she goes, "Yelena." He's like, "Yeah, I'm your dad." Remember that?
like it's so like. When the stuff in the back of the limo, like the lights come on, and Yelena's like, "Who are you driving?"
It's a weird spot for me to say this about this character, but I think I'm okay with him kind of being that. Like, I understand that, like, normally we would say, like, does the Red Guardian eventually need to grow into something or change? But I'm now thinking, like, is it so bad for him to kind of just be like this lovable buffoon all the time?
No.
Is there something wrong with that? Do we have a character like that?
I mean, I think it's like, I think the complaint comes when it's a character that isn't introduced that way. Like what you say with like Drax.
Sure. Yeah, good point.
It's not supposed to be that he's like, initially, it's not so much that he's dumb as it is that he like thinks literally all the time. So you don't like, he's not making like dumb jokes. He's just like, that's the bit. Like the over my head thing. But I think like when you introduce a character like this,
he'd be the closest thing though.
But I do think like, I was thinking about this last night too, and then you mentioned earlier that like you had seen someone talk about like the characterization of Bucky in this movie. And it's funny that you said that, because I was thinking last night, watching David Harbour. One thing I was thinking about though, like, you know, with the way those characters have grown and the way you see things differently, like I'm almost changing course there a tad from, like, the MCU is so connected, and the fun of it is that it's evolving and it's one linear story. So you want to see growth, and you want to see consistency in the right ways. Like you don't want like Tony Stark's character to be unrecognizable in Iron Man 2. Like you want it to feel like it's the same thing. On the other hand, like people do change. like not
No.
not like, oh, you can be better, but like just I think about it this way. Like if you and I went back and listened to like a podcast we recorded in like 2019.
No, we haven't changed at all.
We probably use different, like, we have different phrases that we use a lot, I'm sure. We like have different mannerisms. There are different
we
things
cut
that
out
we
every
seize
single
on.
I know that.
Yeah, we've gotten much
Looser.
less articulate over the years.
Hi.
I just want to say, I've listened to you guys for years.
Really?
Oh man.
What's your name?
Anyway, so I was watching like David Harbour and Sebastian Stan specifically, and just thinking like, I don't know, like I feel like maybe we're a little too caught up sometimes in like, oh, but they would never say that. because like this is the character that like he was an assassin. Now he's just gonna joke around with all like he should be traumatized, and it's like I just don't think that that's how like that's not how people work in real life, and so I don't think that that's how movie characters should work. Like I think it's okay for them to evolve in one direction and maybe not even stay in that direction. Like maybe then they double back. Like I think that that's like character growth in life is messy. And so I was just watching it like there were no characters that I had to say that about to like justify. Like I actually felt like everyone's was pretty consistent anyway. But I did just think like with Red Guardian, like yes, he is like kind of the buffoon, but also like the scene whenever not just the speech that he gives to Yelena, but also like when she steps into the void, his like no.
Yeah,
like,
it's so clutch
really
that
like
they
heartbreaking.
It's so clutch they didn't have him ruin those moments.
Yeah,
I die on that hill. It's a very specific call the director has to make or the script writer.
Yeah,
but with him specifically, it feels like they get it right a lot. And like, I bought that speech obviously with Yelena in a way that works for all the levels. I don't think it was that far from its original character.
Yeah.
You're not like, oh gosh, now we're getting this kind of wisdom from him. It was like one sensitive moment. It's not like he goes on some giant monologue. That'd be kind of forced.
And it goes back to
but like, also a joke there would have ruined
Black
it.
Widow.
But a joke there would have ruined it.
Yeah.
And so getting that balance right is tough.
There are like good, like the other thing is like when they do that, they do it in such a way that like the jokes they're not like, oh, we have to throw a joke here to like give some relief. Like I think about moments with like in the first big conversation with Yelena and Bob, and she's talking about how she knows how it feels, like the void, and he's like, well, what do you do? And she's like, just push it way down.
Yeah, which is that's a
like,
Ricky Bobby joke too.
and it is, yeah, it's like,
why don't you shove that down, never bring that up again. Never bring that up.
I like that seems very natural because they kind of like laugh at it with like they're not trying to.
But I think at that point they also don't have the relationship yet, so that's why you would make that joke in real life. Because it's getting like way too heavy for someone who just met.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So it's a natural joke.
So it's like, I mean, that's why like even the like, can I trust you? No,
you really can't. Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah.
Because I think if she said yeah, it'd be like, why already?
Yeah.
Like you're a assassin that came here to kill somebody and burn this place, and now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and that's like there were other things I noticed too, like little things with him saying that, like in that speech, he says before those like really dark times, you know, you were so special, like you would light up a room, but then he specifically says like you were the one, like you wanted to be goalie because you wanted to be the one that everyone could count on even if they made a mistake. And like that feels like very natural to me. It's like him drawing on this very limited experience he had with her, but he's also like trying to encourage her, and then that fits perfectly into like her role with the team. Like but none of it feels forced.
Sure. Yep.
But again, it like that all, to your point, feels like appropriate stuff for him to say. Even the line whenever he's like, you know, she's like, you disappeared, and he was like, I didn't think you wanted me. Like it's not like he's like, oh, okay, well let me now be serious. He's having that moment of like, well, I don't take myself seriously, and I thought you didn't take me seriously. But like he still is, you know, like in the post-credit scene, like with the Avengers with the Z.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. When you saw that post-credit scene and he's wearing that stuff, that's where I then asked myself, like, am I okay with him just kind of being that way? And I think the answer is yes, for some reason. And with that specific character, yes.
Because I also don't want him to be.
No, I think in that way, if he evolved to like super serious, like team leader or something,
it's just like
that would feel weird.
And also like I think that's kind of the funny. Like you pointed this out in the last episode, like just on that team alone, we have 3 different people with super soldier serum.
Correct.
And so it's like we don't need, like, I like that he's the only one that like was never even like he wasn't even employed by Val. Like he's only there as Yelena's dad.
I love that he's like, so far what we've seen, the least competent one, and yet the most confident in his own abilities and like fan of what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, some rapid fire things here. And by the way, I just gotta say this. This is so cool for us. I'm sorry this episode, if it's like a little noisy or windy and we've cut this like 100 times because people have come up to us. I apologize for listeners at home, but I just gotta say, like, this is unbelievably cool for us. Like, you and I started this. There's just these moments where I'm like, man, you and I started this podcast 5-6 years ago now, and never had an idea that we'd be sitting here right now and like we're having to edit this because people have walked up to us. We just met two Alexes who have listened to us for years and have proved that they've listened to us for years. They're not just saying it. It's amazing. And then so like having those conversations and actually talking to somebody and putting a face with a name or like from a listener, like kind of a generic listener, and now all of a sudden I met them. It's just so special. I know it sounds dumb, but when we sit in our studios and do this, you forget that, oh yeah, you're talking to real people too. And so then when they show up, oh my gosh,
no,
we
it
got
is
real people. They're actually listening.
It's so fun, and it is like to see people. Every time we do things in Austin, it's always fun to see just like the town. I mean, we only do it because I live here, and it makes me curious to try to do something like up in Nashville and see like all the Tennessee listeners that we've never even gotten to meet.
We absolutely need to, and there are some. Okay, rapid fire. We didn't talk about the post-credit sequence was apparently not directed by Jake. It was actually directed.
Oh, that's so true. We didn't talk about that.
With Jake on set still.
Yeah.
From like the Doomsday set. So I think there's a little more to that post-credit sequence that matters. One, maybe that's a little bit of the vibe of what it's going to feel like at times, but also the 14-month jump we didn't talk about much. I feel like that is very specific to not only have the Russos directing it, but choose 14 months. Like, that's not a willing... Like, if that's the time of Doomsday, that maybe gets us a little out of sync of real time. So is that a hint that they're going to delay it a little bit?
I mean, that would be such a, like...
But either way, why choose 14?
Because we're already not in real time,
Why
right?
choose 14 unless you're specifically knowing, like, or 14 matters?
Yeah.
So just an interesting tidbit. But yes, that wasn't Jake, so that is the Russos there.
Yeah, I do wonder... I wonder if maybe there are going to be important points on a timeline. Like, once we get into Doomsday, like, it's going to be very important, like... how many years after or how many months after X point. And, you know, like in the Hickman Avengers comic, there are a lot of like, there are some time jumps that are important. And so I can imagine if they're kind of trying to orient things in that way, it matters. Because there's a world where like you wouldn't even have a time marker.
Yep.
Like you think about like the Ant-Man post-credit scene, right? Where it like...
They just wanted you to know that they've been operating for a while.
Yeah.
That was the point of it. But is there a more specific point?
I have a question on that front that, again, I like kind of noticed more this time. They all, like the costume change, not like the Avengers suit,
right?
But like Bucky is a great example.
Yep.
Like
hair different. And
he like kind of looks goofy in the post-credit scene, and I can't tell if that's intentional. I kind of think it is. Because I'm realizing like the like new Avengers in the MCU, which I think is actually really funny, is almost like it's like a new Coke type thing. Like it's like
I think that was the whole point of
it's like
all
off-brand.
the credits though too. You know, like it's this weird ground where like culture within the MCU doesn't know if they should accept them as good as the last group of Avengers. So even their outfits look a little bit like,
I mean, which does make sense.
Cool.
Like none of them like
it's like a very like put together force team
and like
to the public, I mean.
Yeah, and like the government has approved it, which is the only reason it has like that legitimacy. But it also makes sense that like why Sam
sure.
Like would not, because it's like Sam is like it's everything.
And it'd be really interesting if Sam has an Avengers team that's like super legit looking outfits and stuff, and you know, like
I mean, it is funny because he probably doesn't. I don't know where he would get funding from at this point, but
if he's lost that one connection.
Yeah, I mean, like it is just funny. I mean, you think about like especially because the Sentry is not really an official member, like it is objectively like a lame team, and I kind of love that.
Yeah,
like
right.
the only one that has like not just like their pretty strong superpowers is Ghost.
Right.
But it's like you think about that compared to like the original Avengers where you have like the Hulk and Thor and like so
Iron Man.
I like that like from the like it would look like that's what I mean with like
They're
New
also
Coke.
severely lacking in certain kinds of powers. It's a lot of like punchers.
That's why I love the like the elevator scene where they're like, we don't have anyone that can fly. We all just like shoot and punch people.
the line of him being like, what do you just think I should just jump on Bob's back and ride him to outer space?
We're just gonna ride Bob into outer space.
That made me laugh pretty hard. Okay, 2 other things real quick. It just felt so good, and I didn't emphasize this enough, to just be back in a world where they gave us a whole action set piece where they're just kind of protecting citizens.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
there's
glad. I
collateral
meant to bring that
damage
up too.
of a piece of a building falling, and it's just them trying to physically push it out of the way.
Yeah.
Or stop a car from hitting a child, or ghosts jumping in. And it's just been a long time since that was the stakes.
Dude, also
those were the stakes.
The moment where Red Guardian saves the girl and then she immediately like snapped.
So beautiful, then so brutal. And they make a point of showing her again at the end that she came back.
In my theater, like there was like an audible like gasp.
Correct.
Like it was a nice like oh my god.
But then also a pretty like a pretty genius way, I think, to keep this whole mix of epic and huge in scope and yet very small in scope. It was a very genius way to do that because, like, some people were talking about, excuse me with the sirens here. Some people were talking about like is that a way to keep the budget down, or were the sets too small at times, or do they wish they saw more of the Void, or did we need to see all that of the Void? Could have just been less. Either way, with that discourse, it just made me think like it's a pretty genius way to make it look amazing is choose a few locations. It's not going all over.
Yeah.
And never getting CGI heavy while still making it feel epic in that I think the point is like this didn't feel like a crazy taxing thing to New York, to even where like Mayor Fisk or Spider-Man would have to be involved, because my understanding is it happened so quickly, and those people, like someone on Twitter said, well, where were the Punisher and Spider-Man during all this? And someone wrote back, they were having some crazy mental mind trip in the Void. Like they were having to go through their past probably. You know what I mean? That's where they were. You know, so like it probably happened so quick, and they would have been like, what was that? More than anything.
Yeah.
So just the balance of keeping it epic and small at the same time by showing them protecting a little girl, but also explaining how like it can stay kind of contained.
Well, and don't like I think it's so smart in terms of like setting the tone and the expectations. Like we talked about, liking that they end it in a way that feels like the stakes are high enough because you see that the Void is kind of spreading. So it's not just like 100 people. Like it is like you have the sense that they have to stop it or it's going to become this massive thing. But I like that like eventually they don't overpower him. It's purely just like Yelena knowing how to like draw on like all of them, really, like knowing how to like draw on their own like experience, like in a like their own negative experience and like tragic backstories to kind of know how to, it's like almost, it's like what we talked about. There's like an emotional intelligence aspect, but I like all that because it's like Yelena is one of the least powerful people in the MCU in terms of like a hero, but she's now kind of set up as the person, like the one person that was kind of able to get through to the hero that is the character that is arguably the most powerful person in the MCU.
For sure, one of the top 5.
So it's like it's an interesting dynamic.
But that's as the power levels guy, that's what's so genius with all this stuff is you have to be aware of the power levels and balance it and then find ways for people to contribute in a very meaningful way. And I feel like that's what they did with Sam and Yelena. Like, for example, Sam's not super powered, so give him tech, yes, but also give him the ability to like talk people off a ledge. And and Yelena now, it's like, she's a super fighter, no doubt.
Yeah.
But a bullet to her head would kill her. No question. And so give her the ability she's the only one that has a kind enough heart to talk Bob off the ledge. Like now all of a sudden she is a fixture that you need not just someone where you go, wow, what is she doing here? She'd be overpowered in a second, you know?
Well, and that's why I love, like, I love that scene you're talking about of them saving people for that reason. Because you see, like, okay, this is, like, what they're doing. I was thinking about what you were saying about the Sentry and the Void and how it's, like, he's so unstoppable that, like, what do you do with that? And I was just thinking, like, one, I'm so glad that they utilized that character the way that they did, because it is a really interesting, like, people have done, like, evil Superman, but this isn't that. Like, what I like about this is it's, like, exactly what Bob says at the end, where it's, like, it's not that the Sentry is evil, but it's that having the Sentry risks the Void, which is, like, terrifying, in that you actually can't, like, the only person that can stop the Void is Bob himself, if you can, like, get to him.
And by the way, just a quick side note, we didn't talk about this, there also is some kind of kill switch. Whatever that kill switch is can get to him that they built in. Now, granted, he still came back from that.
Well, and that's what made him the Void, at least in that moment. Like, that's what, like, triggered it.
But I wonder if there's still something you could do, some kind of kryptonite. But yes, keep going.
But yeah, I mean, and then he, like, wakes up totally fine. So I don't think that actually did anything to him.
What it's totally setting up for is some major scene where they're fighting, like, Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
And Yelena, like, says, no, you can be the Sentry without the Void. I believe in you. Like, and somehow he's so empowered that he can then just control it. That's what it's setting up for at some point.
But
like the Hulk, like, you know, talking him off a ledge and, like, you know.
But he's
like Tony.
But I think it's going to be that, or it's going to, I don't know. Part of me thinks what they're setting up is, like, what you were hinting at the other night. This, okay, we are out of options.
We're okay with whatever happens,
like,
here.
This is all we, like, just do it. And then him getting, like turning into the Void and directing that to, like, Dr. Doom or somebody. And I think that would be, like, a really interesting, but again, it's just it's a very unique character. Like, it's not that he is evil, it's that he's, like, so unpredictable and terrifying. And so you just imagine, like, what happens if, like, he gets separated from the Thunderbolts and he's with people that don't know what he's capable of, or, like, is there going to be a fight where he's, like, he is aimed at someone, or is it going to be one of these things where, like, we think it's going to be a huge moment, like the Hulk popping out to take down Thanos,
right,
and then it's, like, extinguished. But last thing on that, isn't it interesting that Yelena and Bob have a somewhat similar dynamic to Natasha and Bruce? Sans romance, but, like, this idea of, like,
although I even thought about the romance for a second.
I wondered that too.
I wondered that for a second.
I can't decide. I think I would be okay with it.
I would be totally okay with it, but I was...
Well, the only reason I say, like, I think is because I really do like the dynamic of them just, like her, like, being a friend to him seems, like, nice, that I like, don't want it to have to escalate, but I think
also,
they would work.
she's lonely, and if they could,
and they do, like, connect in a way that feels organic.
Yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah.
I would totally be on board with that, by the way. Okay, so I think this is what's going to happen. This is what I'll do is I think we'll almost certainly come back to Thunderbolts again down the line once I've seen it again. It's been really fun to kind of monitor. We saw it early. We had heard that the critics liked it. We loved it. And then it's just been kind of fun to see it kind of become a moment again.
Yeah.
Like, fans love it. 95% audience score, A- cinema score. And then our Discord kind of popping off. And it just feels fun to have it be really, really relevant again.
Yeah.
And so at minimum, it now has set up kind of the future of what that could be. So we'll almost certainly come back, and that's when we normally formally rank it. But I do want to, in case we don't come back soon, kind of unveil a little bit of the formal ranking here. For those of you who don't know, we have a MCU complete film ranking and TV ranking on our website, theffwpodcast.com, and so I'm looking at that to my right here. Here's what we have, and I'll tell you the thought process behind our top tier. We've split things into 4 tiers, but in tier 1, these are all the films: Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, Civil War, No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ragnarok, Homecoming, The Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Iron Man, The Avengers, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's our top tier. Typically, where you and I have wrestled is the first two is the kind of thing we wrestle with. Is it Endgame or Infinity War? That's our first wrestle. The next chunk of 4 has always been a wrestle, and this order has changed multiple times, including it might after today's conversation again. Because the next chunk we have is Civil War, No Way Home, Guardians, and Ragnarok. And at one point, Ragnarok's been 3, it's been 7, it's been in there. All 4 of those are almost interchangeable in our opinion, just depending on kind of what your preference or style of movie is.
Yeah.
And then I would say the next chunk is kind of the next thing that we've discussed. Winter Soldier, Homecoming, Black Panther, Iron Man, Avengers, Deadpool and Wolverine, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So for me, and I'll just speak for myself first, obviously, to me this is better than Guardians of the Galaxy 3, better than Deadpool and Wolverine. So this is still tier 1. I think it's in that Iron Man, Avengers, Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Homecoming range. And so I think for some people it might be as high. I mean, it could be as high for me as 6 or 7. And it could be as maybe low, I guess, as 9. But it's hard when you start ranking it against like the Avengers because of the time period and what it meant for film and all of that.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's also interesting because this is also kind of rejuvenating things in the same way. It's not the same cultural moment, but it's kind of starting to feel like that again because of it. So
I do, even the fact that it's pulling mostly pulling characters that have appeared in mostly separate projects, a la Phase 1.
Right.
I think
it's better than Guardians 3 and Deadpool and Wolverine.
I think it's so hard for me to weigh this against Deadpool and Wolverine or No Way Home. Those feel like they are doing something entirely different. And so it's just hard for, I know you have to, and they're both movies, and they're both superhero Marvel movies, but it's like...
No Way Home, for me, when they were all talking, the Spider-Man talking and joking and stuff, was such a high that it's hard to explain. Like, I had that as high as I've felt since Endgame. Not just since Endgame. I mean, I have it at number 3 on this list, or number 4 on this list.
Yeah.
It feels like that. But there are some question marks on that film, little things, that I didn't have in Thunderbolts. So that's what's tough for me.
Yeah, I think it's just like they have different goals as movies. And like I think Thunderbolts is a lot tighter. But and then, again, I just don't know, like you're weighing like how fun is it to see like all the cameos in Deadpool and No Way Home against like something that's the opposite of that. Like it's not trying to do like, look at getting these characters on screen for the first time. Like you're not having people that have been like salivating over seeing like Yelena and Bucky on screen together in the same way.
No doubt. This is why you and I invented the tier system, that we can just say tier 1 instead of arguing between the two. But here's the thing. I think it's objectively, I would separate No Way Home and Deadpool. Because I think No Way Home is a better movie than Deadpool. I think that it's not hard for me to say that Thunderbolts is better than Deadpool for me.
I think it's a better movie.
It's
than
a better
Deadpool.
movie in a lot of ways. Like music is better. I think it's better acted. I think it has a more inventive, creative plot. It's dealing with heavier themes.
Which can cut either way. Like I don't think that necessarily makes it better that it's dealing with heavier themes.
It's better because I said it's better. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying.
I think. And the music thing is tricky for me too because
I know
the score for Deadpool and Wolverine is virtually like forgettable, but the needle drops in that movie are really memorable. And it's like that. I still think Deadpool and Wolverine did what it was trying to do very, very well. Like I still think that movie's really funny. I still think the fight sequences are really fun. Like it's a Deadpool Wolverine movie, like it's never going to be like if they had made it heavier, if they had made it like...
But it's not even that. Like, they could have landed the emotional plane a little bit better. They could have tied it into the MCU a little bit more. I didn't have any of those feelings on Monday.
No, I mean, yeah, but they could have. But again, I just don't, like, does it make sense to make a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine? Like, it's why I said the other night.
Okay.
It's why I said the other night, I think Thunderbolts is what I wanted Brave New World to be. It's not what I wanted Deadpool and Wolverine to be. But the last thing I was going to say on the ranking point is like, I think the harder question for me is Guardians 3, because I think it's neck and neck in like just objectively. Now the difference is, I've said this, like I've always resonated with like the center,
Yeah,
like MCU Avengers stuff. So Thunderbolts is more my scene.
Same.
But I do think like Guardians 3 landed that plane really, really, really well. It had to conclude a trilogy. It had to deal with Infinity War and Endgame being thrown in the middle of that trilogy, and like that like really throwing it off course.
And they're all in tier 1. I mean, I agree. I think when in doubt, if they're tied, can you ever use something else as your tiebreaker? Like, could you ever leverage the scores? Because, for example, Rotten Tomatoes score, Thunderbolts 90, Deadpool and Wolverine 78.
Yeah.
So if it's tied, I'm not using that as my thing.
No, I see what you're saying.
But if it's like in your mind, like either or, I'm a little bit then going like, I don't know.
Well, and
I also just think I'm also not only preferenced more towards the central MCU and the Avengers, but also pushing that story forward.
Yeah.
More than the Foxverse reflection.
Well, and I
preference-wise.
Yeah, I also think like to your point, it's a like you always talk about things that you're going to feel comfortable recommending to people.
Yeah, sure.
And Thunderbolts is one that I have zero reservations about. Guardians 3, I actually would probably have a little bit of reservations about because just some of it gets so wacky that there are certain people that I know that would like not respond well to the like walking like pig monster.
Yeah, my dad would be like, this is a little weird.
But again, you know, that's James Gunn's thing.
Yep.
And he does it. Everyone knows that's what you're getting in a Guardians movie.
But it's not as much my thing, and that's where the preference does matter for me. If I'm making it.
Which is why, like,
Either way, it's middle of tier 1, regardless of what you and I are talking about.
Yeah. No.
And it's up for debate if it's the best film since Endgame.
How do you think it ranks against, like, Guardians 1?
I think Guardians 1 is just a little bit better and a little bit more of the cultural moment being grasped.
Yeah.
Just barely. So, like, for me, I think when I'm looking at our list...
I think that's right.
I don't think Thunderbolts is as good as Endgame or Infinity War, and I throw Civil War in there, just that's a preference thing. That's almost like the third Avengers film on that list. And then you kind of have this Guardians of the Galaxy, Ragnarok, No Way Home, that I still think probably... It's not quite that range, like the very, very, very top of the top. But I think it's right, for me, it's right after that with interchangeable with like Homecoming, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, Iron Man, Avengers.
Yeah.
That to me is like the next change.
Yeah.
And I think it's in there above Guardians 3 and Deadpool, which is the bottom of the top tier in my mind. That's what we have on our website.
Doing it by tier, I think, is smart there because you brought up doing like an S tier, and I do think that like
special.
Whatever that looks like, it is one of those things where I'm almost tired of having to caveat Endgame and Infinity War as their own things because like
how else can they break into that?
Yeah, and so I don't like I mean I say that, you know, maybe Doomsday or Secret Wars does like meet one of those or top one of those, which would be really fun. But I do like the idea of trying to break out, like, I don't know, maybe even, like, the Avengers movies in general at some point because they become, like...
Yeah, but then is Civil War, is Thunderbolts an Avengers movie?
Thunderbolts isn't.
But you know what I mean.
But I mean, it is, but yeah, it's like...
It literally is at the end.
It's hard because, like, the, you know, Age of Ultron, you don't really have to do that with because it's not viewed as, like, S tier in that way. And the first one is not quite as like, you know, like we were saying the other night, Infinity War and Endgame are hardly even Avengers movies.
I like S tier, and the disclaimer being you could say this is graded on a different curve. It is because if you have put in the work and you have done the time, this is like a special payoff that will never be topped.
Yeah.
But as a standalone film, like Infinity War has 80%.
Yeah.
Like, in that way, or 85 or something, in that way, it's not going to get 100%, but it's special in that if you're into this stuff, nothing will ever live up to that payoff. Well, and I like separating that and then being like, hey, here's the rest of tier 1.
I think for me, actually, like, I think for me, there are 4 movies that will always fall in that category, and for different reasons. And we'll like get into an actual ranking, but while I'm thinking about it,
it's gonna be a YouTube video we make.
I think it is like. For me, the movies that are just always going to be really hard to compare to any other movies are Iron Man, The Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. because they just like and probably Guardians, it would be like the fifth, in that they are so like they were such clear like revolutionary moments. Like whether you think Avengers like holds up compared to like phase 2 and phase 3 things, or it's like because there are things that are clunkier, there are parts of like the camera work that we like joke around with.
I like this, a special tier to separate those.
Like, don't you know, like, those are all, like, how do you, yes, like, there are other movies that are better than Iron Man, but it's like, that is it. Like, that's the, like...
We wouldn't be here today.
So it's always kind of weird to be, like, how do you judge something that has the benefit of Iron Man against Iron Man? And that's everything in the MCU.
We're going to do an official ranking on YouTube, and that will change our website from that point on. And I like that idea, a special tier that is just incomparable. I like that even more than separating like Infinity Saga versus Multiverse Saga.
Yeah.
I like that, saying, does this fit into like an unrankable tier, essentially because of all those factors.
And that, I don't know if we will or not, which is why we're going to do a whole video, but you can maybe make an argument for No Way Home on that too, because of how unique it is. But then again, maybe as the Multiverse Saga goes on, it becomes less unique. I mean, it already kind of has been.
All right, thanks for listening. Thanks for everyone who came out to Awesome Books and Comics and said hi to us. This has been so much fun. We'll see you back here next time on Friends from Work.